I've got Dr. Kwan Stewart here. He is a vet that you may have seen on some TV news shows or on the internet, or perhaps by watching the TV docuseries he's starring in called Dr. Kwan, the Street Vet. For the last 9 years, Dr. Kwan has been spending time walking the neighborhoods of LA and California looking for people living on the streets that might have pets that are in need of veterinary care. And he is called the street vet because wearing scrubs and carrying a medical bag in his hand, he walks up to people and offers a smile. And if they accept a professional veterinary exam, right there, right then, for free. Welcome, Dr. Kwan.
So much for having me.
I am thrilled to be able to talk to you. Let's go right to one of your favorite stories about you helping a person and their pet.
Okay, all right, we can get right into it. I've told the story a few times because I'm asked often which is one of my favorites or most emotional, and this is one that actually got me teared up in the moment. And sometimes when I even tell the story, I start to get choked up. So forgive me if I have my Oprah moment as I'm telling the story.
Please do.
But yeah, right, of course. I met this gentleman, Mike, in San Diego. To picture him, you'd see a maybe mid-50s, thin, bearded, kind of blondish, scruffy hair, but a really sweet man with a nice smile. And his companion was a dachshund named Crazy Girl. He called her Cray Cray. And they had been a bonded pair by this point, maybe 7, 8 years now. And she was his everything to him. He came from Colorado in search of better medical care. He had colon cancer. And during the course of our conversation, before I really started examining Crazy Girl, he lifted his shirt and showed me the colostomy bag. And he had been battling this for a while, but he wasn't concerned about that. He didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to only talk about her because she had recently gone blind. And she was trailing him, following him around, using her sense of smell and her hearing, because by my account, by watching her, she was completely blind. And I did the examination and immediately got a sense that there was probably some really bad disease. But as he was explaining how important she was to him, he said, "Look, Doc, I've been fighting cancer and that's fine. That's what, God gave me, but I would gladly keep my cancer if you could restore her vision." And he meant it. You could see that, she was really probably his reason for getting up in the morning, for fighting this, terrible disease. And he just wanted her healthy so that she could make him healthy. And end of the story was, unfortunately, I could not restore vision. She had bilateral glaucoma. So her, the cells responsible for vision in her retina were gone, no longer functioning. But glaucoma is a painful condition. So we were able to alleviate the discomfort, at least, and that gave him some comfort too. But yeah, I think back and Mike, so that was now almost 3 years ago. Mike is still fighting the good fight. He checked in with us as recently as a few months ago, and even back then they only gave him 6 months to a year to live. And now 3 years later, he's still kicking, and Crazy Girl is still by his side. So, an inspiration really, and again, just a really sweet man. He didn't have any money. He didn't have a dime to his name. All he had was his cart and his dog. And I try and offer some money to most of the people I see, just out of my pocket, whatever I have, $40, $60. And we gave him some money. He immediately took the money and came back and brought us all pizza. That's just the kind of person he is. He takes what he has and he gives it right back. So, but yeah, that's one of my favorite all-time stories from the streets.
Well, I know that you in your medical bag may have some vaccinations and some different pills that you have been paying for on your own. But what if they do need some much more involved medical procedure or surgery that costs a lot of money? What happens then?
Well, now I sort of have a network of colleagues I can reach out to, professional friends. I can call in favors to. Um, at the time, I didn't have my own practice. I have that now.
Hmm.
So I have more outlets. In the beginning, I was learning it on the fly. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
know. I really didn't know what all I'd see or how much follow-up care they would need, and I would just do my best. If I saw a dog that, for example, had teeth rotting out of its mouth and needed a dentistry, and those can be expensive procedures, sometimes $1,000, $2,000. I would, pay the portion I could, and then set up a clinic where they could go to. And I would work through every case, just like case I saw in my own clinic.
Hmm. Dr. Kwan, do the people tell you how the animals have come into their lives?
Yeah, most of them do. A lot of these interactions become very personal,
Mhm.
uh, typically, because you have to imagine it's almost like I'm dropping out of the sky and presenting myself to this person and saying I'm here to help. What can I do for you? And in the beginning, yes, I'd say at least half these pet owners, are a little reticent because they don't initially know my intentions. They get hassled
Mhm.
a lot. So sadly, today they still get mistreated. And so they don't know if maybe my intention is to take their dog from them,
Mm.
or I have some, other agenda. But once I let them know, look, I'm just here for your pets. Whatever I can do to help them now, it's no cost to you. I'm willing to do that. And I think when they see the sincerity, this trusting door opens, and we start sharing a lot of stuff. I mean, I've shared really personal stuff about myself, my life, my pets, and they do too. So yeah, typically they will, if I ask, tell me how they came together.
And I would think by the fact that you're opening up makes them feel more safe, which is so important for any kind of relationship, especially when you're living in a way that is kind of considered more unusual.
Hmm.
So, would you say sometimes are people finding animals that were abandoned on the street and they just kind of come together, or are they going to rescue them? Can you briefly say how do these people and these animals connect with one another?
It's, I guess if you were looking at a pie chart, and this is my experience, my anecdotal experience of about, a case study now of a few hundred, closer to 500, um, homeless people I've seen on the streets with their pets. So a pretty fair amount. I would say that it probably breaks up somewhere around 25% to 30% um, find their pets on the streets. So as a stray, you know, getting food out of a dumpster,
Mm.
in an alley. These people are on the streets, living on the streets, so they're encountering stray animals often, right? And I think sometimes they just, befriend one another. And then I would say, another quarter to a third are intentionally rescued. They're lonely on the streets and they're seeking a companion so they can go to a rescue and adopt. And then I would say probably the last portion are people who just find themselves out of a home suddenly and are bringing their pet with them.
Oh, right.
They had a pet in a home. They were together in their home, and for whatever reason found themselves on the streets.
So, what is it that we who are not living that life don't know about the relationship between the people and their pets that do happen to be living on the street?
You should know the relationship between the two. Despite what you may think about your own relationship with your pet, as strong as it may be, is on a much higher level. It's on a
Mm.
much different plane. And that's simply because they're together every minute of every day. And, quite frankly, that's where they are better pet owners. I know they get questioned a lot whether they should even
Hmm.
have a pet, but, for the average person, we go to work. I go to work 8, 10 hours a day. I don't see my pets, a good portion of the day. And I'm my whole pet's universe. I really am. I mean, they could really care less about how the four walls look and how they're painted and the decorations and the fixtures. And pets don't care about that, right? They
Hmm.
want a warm place to sleep. They want, some food and water, and they want you. That's what they want. And probably more than all that, they want to be by your side. So yeah, while I'm at work, my pets are pining for me and they're peeling back the curtains. They hear the garage door open and they run to the door.
Right.
But these homeless people are with their pet, every minute. and the relationship, that I observe certainly shows that I've witnessed it. Pretty amazing um, bonds over these years.
And what are these animals to these people? I mean, how meaningful or how important is the fact that they have this little creature sharing their lives with them?
Well, I'll just share a quote that I now use often because
Hmm.
I think it sums it up. A gentleman on the streets that we met loved his dog dearly. In fact, the dog needed X-rays. It needed some work, and so I brought it into the hospital, and I wanted to take it back for X-rays. He will not let his dog out of his sight.
Mm.
Not even with me, the veterinarian, to do something that was necessary medically for his pet. And this gentleman had been suffering from substance abuse addiction for many years, up and down, rehab, better, worse, better. A real elevator roller coaster ride for him. And when he found his dog, in an alley, uh, he said his rehab improved dramatically,
Oh.
and he stopped needing his therapy sessions and his medications and so forth. And here's the quote: he said, "My dog is more important to me than any pill or any therapy session I've ever had."
Totally understandable. And everyone who has a dog or cat or some other pet in their life knows the effect that they have on them. You say this is a mission of yours. How so?
It's a mission now. If I'm being honest, I don't know that I really knew what it was in the beginning. It was
Uh-huh.
it was me just saying, I have this idea, I see a need, and I have some spare time and extra money, and this is what I'm going to do. It's now evolved, I guess, into a mission. I have a nonprofit foundation called Project Street Vet, and I now, yeah, I can dream bigger. It's caught the attention of a lot of people. We have the docu series, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
I have a pretty decent following on social media, which seems to be the best vehicle these days. I'm not a social media person, but still seems to be the best way to reach people. And
Right.
now, yeah, I want this to spread. I want the word to continue to get out that, um, look, homelessness isn't going anywhere, right? This problem is endemic. It continues to get worse, it feels like, and more people are finding themselves on the streets with their pets, and their pets need care. So I want to find ways to deliver that care.
I'm so glad you mentioned Project Street Vet because I wanted to talk about it, and of course, the link to that website will be on the full show notes for this episode. But I was wondering, Dr. Kwan, what it must feel like for you, knowing you are, delivering profoundly valuable care to these animals, yet the need is so overwhelming everywhere.
It right. The need is everywhere, and in the beginning, it was almost a little overwhelming at times for
Hmm.
me because, in Southern California, particularly LA and Skid Row, there's no shortage of need. And when you consider that maybe 20 to 25% of our homeless population have a pet, so about one fourth of people on the streets that you see own a pet, whether you see that pet next to them or not,
Mm.
that's a lot. I mean, there are tens of thousands of homeless people just in the LA region alone, which means there are thousands of homeless pets. And so when I started writing some of the numbers through my head, and every homeless person I met knew another friend or
Hmm.
homeless person that needed help as well. I It took me back to my days of working in the shelter where you just feel like it's never going to stop. But I learned how to, I guess, maybe compartmentalize or psychologically um, deal or cope, and it was just one at a time. I just focused on one at a time and did what I could. Um, so yeah, it's evolved, and I have other colleagues now reaching out to me, which is great. That's the part that really warms my heart and gets me teary eyed. Is that I have so many people now wanting to do similar work, whether it's here in California or even I get inquiries from the Netherlands or from
Ooh.
Bolivia or, way overseas because of social media. And they say they're inspired by my story and they want to do the same thing.
And so Project Street Vet is really connecting other cities or other towns or even universities, um, uh, encouraging people to set up programs so that there are people out there doing what you're basically doing as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the word is getting out more and more. And yeah, there are vet students that reach out. There are, seasoned colleagues, veterinarians like myself, who have reached out. And of course, just ordinary people who say, I see homeless people in my neighborhood. What can I do? And yeah, it's really neat. I just didn't imagine it going or getting this big, but it's really cool that it has.
I wanted to tell you that I had seen a photograph years ago that really made an impression on me. And it was a picture of a person, I think it was a man, in a box. His little house was a box. And next to him, cuddled right up next to him, was a very content looking dog. And that image was so bittersweet to me. Bitter because here, they were living in a box. Although I kind of felt some gratefulness that, well, they've got a box, but so sweet that here was this other warm, living creature right next to this man, and you could see the love between them. And I felt grateful that, oh, they have each other.
Well, that story, that scene you just described, I see over and over. I've seen it,
Mhm.
100 times over,
Mhm.
and yeah, it touches you. Right, it saddens you in one way, but you observe, you witness this connection, unlike few others, and it just says something about the importance of animals play in our lives, that pets play in our lives, and
Mhm.
what they do for us, and then of course how we in turn care for them. It goes both ways.
Yes. So, what is the most important or common treatment that you find you need to administer to, I guess, the greatest majority of pets that you find on the street?
In California, we have a major issue with allergies, fleas, skin issues, and ear infections. They all sort of tie together. So many of these pets are in need of alleviating the discomfort, the rashes, the infections that come as a result of some of these ailments. And the good thing is they're usually pretty easy to fix or address. And you can imagine if you're a dog covered in fleas and you're bumpy and red and itching all the time, how miserable you are, right? And that is something that I can fix with a pill and some antibiotics. And you come back a week or two later and you see this totally new dog.
It,
And
go on.
yeah, no, no, I no, that's what keeps me doing this.
Mhm.
I come back, I see the improvement, how little of my time and money it costs to do it, and just this amazing transformation sometimes.
The reason why I got excited is I think I remembered it, and I think maybe this was the very, very first story where you talked about a dog that had fleas and the wonderful thing that happened for the person, the dog's owner also when you were able to cure him. Can you tell that story? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do, because that's the moment that really kicked off this whole journey that I never thought was going to be. And
Uh-huh.
I was, I'd go to work, and at the 7-Eleven, I would see the same, homeless gentleman outside with his dog. And look, this is before I started doing the work. I, like so many others, would kind of pass by him and ignore him, right? You're
Mhm.
almost afraid to make eye contact because then you think they're going to ask for something or grab your attention, and you're busy and you're in a hurry and you're too worried about your own day. And so yeah, I just walked by him a number of times until finally I looked over and noticed his dog was just covered, in this rash. And when you've been doing this long enough as a vet, you can diagnose problems sometimes from across the street. So I immediately
Uh-huh.
knew it was probably fleas, and it was a flea allergic dermatitis. And so I thought, as I'm walking out with my coffee, I just stopped myself and I walked over and I said, "Excuse me, I see you have a pet, and looks like it's having some skin issues. Can you tell me what's going on?" We talked for a minute. I said, "You know what? I'll be back here tomorrow with something if you'll be here, and see if we can take care of this." And I did. The next day, it was a flea treatment. And that, yeah, I came back 2 weeks later. The dog was brand new. The guy started tearing up. He said, it changed her. She's so much better. She's sleeping at night, I'm sleeping at night, and he was just so grateful. Like in that moment, I could see him looking at me, and there was, he had hope for humanity. It almost seemed like his hope, his humanity was restored, just because of that one little moment.
Right. Well, I really related to, so the dog is scratching nonstop and can't get any rest. And then the person is all worried, and anxious. And so, I could really relate to that. And that's why I really loved that story. So, Dr. Kwan, where can we see your TV docuseries?
Well, you can't see it in the U.S. Sadly, not
Right.
yet. Anyways, it's in 30 countries around the world, but it's not been picked up in the U.S. yet. Hopefully, it will soon. But yeah, it's broadcast. It doesn't stream, so again, unfortunately, it just can't be viewed even by my own family and friends unless I send them links
Oh,
or they catch pieces on YouTube. But yeah, it's in multiple countries, and the response I get is really um, is really good. People are happy and they're inspired by it, and but yeah, with any luck, it'll be here, and so we can witness what I'm doing right here in my own backyard.
right. Well, of course, this podcast is worldwide, so some people will be able to look it up. Although I did notice that on one of the websites or some social media, you mentioned that there are some things you can see of the TV show on your YouTube channel. So we should send people there, right?
Yeah, they can go there, and if you just Google me and pull up YouTube, there are many clips from the show.
Yes.
Warm openings or the cool endings. But yeah, you can get a sense of what the show is about.
Okay. So you've just opened your own practice. Very exciting. Modesto Family Pet. Oh, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've never been an official practice owner, and that was intentional because, like opening any small business, you're working almost every day, and you're wearing a lot of hats, and you're part businessman, part vet, and manager. But it was something I'd always wanted to do. I knew I was going to do it eventually, and yeah, so far it's going well. I'm probably getting more business than I was ready for, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But I have a place to bring and treat some of the cases I'm seeing now, right with me instead of having to refer out or send to someone or beg for favors, which I've had to do over the years, and that's fine. No ego here. But now I can bring them right here and do it in my own place.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know you still have a GoFundMe page for anyone who wants to make any kind of donations or help out. And so right now you're the only practicing vet in your new facility, right?
I am the
Uh,
only one here.
okay. Well, eventually maybe you'll grow the business. I wish you great luck and success on that. I also do have to say, kind of in closing, Dr. Kwan, that I was thinking about there may be people that would be judgmental and think that the people living on the street should not have pets. And of course, you can speak towards that a little. But what I loved that I heard you say is your attitude is no judgment, just help.
Right. That's a mantra that I've developed over the years. And again, I had my own prejudgments about homelessness and homeless people. Um, and you'd see an able-bodied young man standing on a corner panhandling, and you think you should be working, you should have a job, but it's not that simple. And it took me time to learn and understand that as well. It's been a learning experience for me also, that I can't write these people's stories. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't place judgment on them when I don't know what brought them here, because there are so many circumstances that take people, sadly, to the streets. They don't want to be there. It could be issues at home. It could be substance abuse. These days, I'm finding it's economic. There are people who just have
Mm.
bad credit who are on the
Hmm.
streets. I've met homeless people who have a full-time job, but because of bad credit, they can't find their way into an apartment in LA. I mean, if you have a low credit score, then you're 20th in line to get a studio apartment
Mm.
in Los Angeles. So there are these barriers, these hurdles that get in their way, and yeah, it's not as always as simple as you go get a job and get a home and start working. Society has created this problem. This is a societal problem, which means we should be able to find a solution.
When you end your day, having been out in the neighborhood, mostly how do you feel? Like, are you uplifted? Are you discouraged? Or like, how do you keep going and keep going back out and helping these animals?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm always encouraged, and I have sometimes have to talk myself up at the end of the day
Hmm.
that I did some good, right? I I saw some pets. I helped them. It helped their owner by extension, and that's good. Sometimes I deliver more help than others. Sometimes I'm just doing an exam. The pet is perfectly healthy.
Hmm.
It's really just a checkup, and I'm able to tell the owner, "You're doing a great job." And so sometimes just a reassurance. They're happy just to know, like, I am a good pet owner. Yeah, I am. I heard it straight from a veterinarian that I'm doing a good job. Sometimes that alone is enough. But it's tough, yeah, because when I'm out there, I'm witnessing people in poverty, in deep poverty, who struggle to eat sometimes, and who are out in the cold and getting rained on. And again, I think that the U.S. is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, maybe one of the
Hmm.
wealthiest countries in the history of society. And here we are, people, our citizens are on the streets without health care and access to 3 meals a day, and it's sad, and that needs to change. Yeah, but overall, I find a way to deal with that so I can get back out there and keep doing the work.
Right. And in all the videos we see of you, we can see your spirit and your optimism shining through. And I honor you for what you were doing. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Dr. Kwan, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be here.
I loved it. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome.